Championship Sunday is set. The Baltimore Ravens fumble it away against the Buffalo Bills, and a new star being born before our eyes in Washington. All that and more coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look at the NFL on the field and in the front office with elite breakdowns to next-level analysis and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Love and appreciate all the everydayers out there. Thanks for coming along on the ride. We've only got 3 games left this season, but tons of off-season stuff. I'm sure some coach hires are going to come fast and furious with new guys now available for those in-person interviews this week who have been eliminated. NFL draft as well. So make sure you hang out with us every day. Hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up so we know you're here on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. And let's go to the snowy Sunday late game where the Buffalo Bills advanced over the Baltimore Ravens 27-25. A 2-point conversion that was dropped by Mark Andrews. I'm sure he feels terrible, had a rough night's sleep. A lot of people pointing to the Baltimore Ravens giving this game away to the Buffalo Bills. Are we not giving enough credit to the Buffalo Bills in that case? Talk to me about Ravens Bills. I thought it was going to be a tight one, and it was like, what was it, a 1-point spread, right? And it was a tight one, and it was interesting because there was some good and some bad on both sides, and in a lot of ways Lamar Jackson was really good except for some really, really key mistakes.
And I mean, the quarterback heavyweight matchup is obviously what we were looking forward to, and we didn't see highlight reel home run after home run of either one of these guys. And a big thing I said about both these dudes, and there was a lot of MVP talk, of course, is man, these guys have really cut down the mistakes. And I thought that was more true in Allen's career. I mean, they had the fewest sacks taken in the league. He hardly ever turns the ball over. Lamar still fumbles here and there, but he's really hard to sack. Only threw, I think, 4 picks. And especially where Allen came from his rookie year, where he was such a wild stallion. Reeling him in and playing smart and taking the layups. I think they only completed a pass over 15 yards once in this game, and they hardly even tried them. Just ball control. And a huge Belichick thing is more games are lost than won. And there's definitely an art to the Bills not losing this game, running the football, ball control offense. But I think in the end, the Ravens lost it. And some of that is Andrews not being able to haul in those a 2-point conversion, robbed us of what it could have been an amazing overtime. His fumble was huge. He had another drop. Lamar had 2 pretty huge mistakes too that were turnovers. And to me, that was clearly the difference because I thought the Ravens were taking this game over in the second half. They just hand the ball off, and there was the dam had broke on the Bills' run defense to me.
And it was almost like, okay, get some early turnovers, and then it almost strengthened sort of the resolve of the Buffalo Bills to be like, okay, yep, that it's going to be that game, and we're going to go ball control. We're going to get close, and we're going to let Josh Allen have 3 chances to, put his 250 pounds over the line, and he scores 2 touchdowns on 10 carries, and he had half as many carries in this game as he had pass attempts, and that was the plan, the ball control offense for the Buffalo Bills. And we did see both teams start to get a little bit better running the football later in the game. You started to look like it felt like, okay, the Ravens got past the turnovers, and they're moving down the field, and Derrick Henry's starting to get going. Okay. And they're starting to heat up. Okay. Maybe this is that wave they need, and they're going to ride it in, and they're going to end up in the championship game. But it was not to be. Obviously the Andrews drop, but also the fumble. I do want to point out, and hopefully this will make Mark Andrews feel maybe a little bit better, and maybe calm down the pitchforks for Mark Andrews in this game. Because again, his mistakes were timely, but Lamar made big mistakes as well.
Big
and
mistakes,
just weren't at the very end of the game like Mark Andrews were in crunch time. So Mark Andrews catches the ball. It's tied 27-27. There was a minute and a half left with 2 timeouts.
I know.
It wasn't.
I was texting my buds. I'm like, that's a lot of time for Allen if they score here.
And I don't know what the analytics say about it, what the data says about the percentage, but at least 50% chance that they have an opportunity to kick a field goal. So it's not like that game was going into overtime. The Bills were going to get the ball back with a minute and a half and just had to get into field goal range with the game tied. 2 timeouts, minute and a half. It's an eternity in the NFL. And I know it was snowing and it wasn't necessarily a laser show passing game, but I have a sneaking suspicion they would have had an opportunity for a kick at the end of that game.
And to add on that, I'm glad you brought it up because that's absolutely true. And it's never going to be thought of again.
Right.
I didn't think the Ravens D was great in this game either. Like they were kind of there right for the taking if Allen does get a minute and a half or whatever to drive down the field. And part of that was run defense. I mean, they got pushed around a little bit, but that's supposed to be like the best run defense in the league.
Are the Chiefs the best defense left? I guess the Chiefs and Eagles, right?
I say Eagles are pretty darn good too.
Yeah.
I think the Eagles were the best defense yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they're the best 2 defenses.
Because Stafford was a laser show with Stafford. Like Stafford was doing everything he could. And my biggest takeaway from the weekend, and I talked about this a little bit on Locked On 49ers on the most recent episode after the games, because there's a lot of talk with the 49ers about Brock Purdy and, what's important and how do you build a football team? And can you pay Brock Purdy $60 million a year or whatever? Every single playoff game so far, if I'm pretty sure, and especially this weekend, every single game, the better quarterback won, except Rams against Eagles, and the Rams got thoroughly dominated up front. So how do you build a football team? Get the best quarterback, and if you don't have the best quarterback, you better be better than them on the offensive and defensive line and dominate there, right? That's NFL football right now. And I don't
know if Allen's better than Lamar or Lamar's better than Allen, but yes, if they're a tie, then that's a wash. Right? Yeah,
exactly. And the one team made a couple mistakes, and the other team won. It was so close. And now, exactly.
Great point.
And I think the best example of that might have been the Saturday games. And you see a young quarterback go and beat the Detroit Lions, and it was like, man, okay, wow. Because and similar to what you're talking about, and that's what kind of brought me down this road. And we're going to talk more about specifics about those games, but just to kind of circle this idea here, the Ravens defense, wasn't amazing. The Commanders defense wasn't amazing. The Lions defense wasn't amazing. So who took advantage of those things? Well, it was the team with the best quarterback play and the best quarterbacks, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what dominated the weekend. And so it was really interesting because literally every game except for one, where one team got the most thoroughly dominated up front, the best quarterback won those games.
Yep. And pretty much true all the way through the playoffs, and wouldn't shock me going forward too.
And like dominating fashion in a lot of the games.
I know we're not looking ahead, but I give Washington the quarterback advantage against the Eagles.
Yes, yeah, but
clearly
it's have to be the same game plan again.
Right.
A similar matchup that it was to the Rams. Does that work in the Eagles' favor because they can win that way, and they've already proven they can win that way? And it's not like their quarterback is garbage either, Mm-hmm. And so let's get into more of those games. Let's talk Washington and Detroit, because that was probably the biggest shocker of the weekend, with the 1 seed going down against a rookie quarterback. Eagles, Rams, and of course the Chiefs and the Texans. Ho-hum, Chiefs back in it again in the championship weekend mix. All that and more coming up on today's little preview of the conference games as well. Next. This episode of Peacock and Williamson brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. And growing your small business in 2025 comes down to how well you can hire. How good are your people around you? We just talked about how important it is to have the right people in the right jobs, and you got the best people in those jobs, and then you build around those people with other great people, and that's when you are winning football games, and that's when your business is really rolling. And let's face it, better hires start with smarter insights. That's where LinkedIn comes in. With the strongest hiring data available, LinkedIn helps you identify the right candidates, giving you the confidence to make the best decisions for your business. And we've used LinkedIn Jobs here on the network to great success. It's a game changer when it comes to hiring the right fit. And small businesses are wearing so many hats. LinkedIn gets that. That's why they connect you with the best candidates using data you won't find anywhere else, from unique skills and interests to the connections you share. LinkedIn helps find the right person for the job. In fact, 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn has helped them find high-quality candidates. So hire smarter this year and find your great hire on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. The next segment of this episode of Peacock and Williamson on the Locked On Network, brought to you by Prize Picks. Playoff time. If you're like me, you want to make the most of the final weeks of the football action. 3 more games to get in on that action on Prize Picks. That's where Prize Picks comes in. And if you love football and you want a chance to win real money while watching the games, Prize Picks is the place for you. It's the best way to turn your sports opinions into cash with daily fantasy player projections. And by the way, when the football season's over, lots of basketball, baseball season coming up. You can find a ton of action all year long at Prize Picks. And with Prize Picks, you simply pick more or less on players' stat projections, like total passing yards or rushing touchdowns for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds, and always a special offer for our listeners. And for example, if you want to, pick Saquon Barkley, right? He seems to be automatic when you're going more than on yards and scoring a touchdown. Taco Tuesday discounts as well as you're getting ready for championship weekend. And the special offer is use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup at Prize Picks. Run your game. So Eagles-Rams. It was the Philadelphia Eagles and Saquon Barkley going for 200 yards. And, impressive run, I think, for the Rams. And Stafford was really good in this game. But it was just not enough because some of the holes that Saquon Barkley had to run through. And look, kudos to the Rams defensive line, young defensive line. They did make some plays, but they're a little bit more built for getting after the quarterback than they are built for stopping the run. And it was pretty evident early in this game, Matt, that it was going to be very difficult for the Los Angeles Rams because how thoroughly they were getting beaten up front.
Yeah, and they lost the turnover battle. And I do think, big play runs aside, the Rams defense played a pretty admirable game, especially in pass defense and their pass rush. They sacked Hurt 7 times after 9 in the wild card weekend. I mean, that defensive line is getting after it. Hurts injured his knee, and I thought his mobility was compromised. But my biggest takeaway, unfortunately, is I'm worried about the Eagles' passing game and Hurts. Back to your quarterback situation. I mean, you feel like if you run for 285, this game shouldn't even be that close when you have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and a healthy Dallas Goedert. And I know they didn't need it, and I'm not bashing the Eagles. And they also lost Quinyon Mitchell in this game, which is big going forward. But I'm a little concerned just to win the whole thing. Is their passing game good enough? And I thought the Rams played well. They're not as talented. That Eagles front was really impressive on both sides. I mean, the holes that Barkley's running through were crazy. And Lane Johnson and Mulata is like 20 yards downfield looking for somebody to blast as Barkley's running 80 yards or whatever. And their run offense was amazing. But it was also just so big play oriented too. If you could have got one of those guys on the ground at 10 yards down the field, not 80, it would have been a little different for the Rams. But we know that's what Barkley provides.
Well, the problem is that they didn't. You have to get him down within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. You have to touch him within 10 yards. Of the line.
Right. I mean, the holes, like you said, that's probably the story. And Jaylen,
like one guy missed a tackle, and Saquon is just like, okay, I'm going to run this way because there's nothing but grass in front of me.
Yeah, that's probably the short and correct way to view it. Like, I'm just blowing people away, and their D-line's good rushing the passer, but was not in terms of holding the point, and linebackers weren't filling, and all that bad stuff for the Rams. And I just want to mention Jalen Carter, too. I mean, really was double-teamed every play, and then when he wasn't, he was just a dominant player, too, He
was wrecking. You see a lot from Jalen Carter that you see from Chris Jones and the Kansas City Chiefs. And It was the Chiefs that rolled over the Texans 23-14. And I don't know what it is. And I don't know if it's like a purposeful thing with Chris Jones, where on first and second down, he's like just gearing up for third down, or if they're like, hey, Chris, just do your thing, take on blocks and be a good player. But on third down, he's the best third down player in the NFL right now. Like, he wins every single time. It's crazy. And then
yeah, you might be right.
How good Spagnuolo is, and they're kind of versatile skill set of linebackers and pass rushers, and blitzing from different places. They're such a tough defense to play against for teams. And they gave CJ Stroud and the Texans all they can handle in this, and it's been going on for years and years now, and they just keep rolling.
8 sacks. I mean, we saw a lot of sacks this weekend. Like you said, Chris Jones, when dialed up, and I definitely think that's a Chiefs thing. Hey, Kelsey, save it for the playoffs, and he's looking great, of course, as well. Texans had some special teams stuff that didn't go their way, which is you're never going to win in Kansas City in a playoff game when you're not good in that phase. Everyone wants to harp on Mahomes and the refs and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, he's probably gets some calls he shouldn't. But I also think this has gone on in sports our whole life. And Josh Allen does too, guys. People just don't complain about it because they don't have a million rings,
So my thing with this and Patrick Mahomes is you can't blame Mahomes if the refs make bad calls and they're trying too hard to protect the quarterbacks. That's not necessarily his fault. You can absolutely blame him after bad calls are happening for trying to flop on one. That was an awful look, and it makes it real hard to root for a guy that's trying to pull that crap. Like that as
I get that.
You're watching the game and you're like, come on, these calls, and they're getting bailed out, and the Texans are playing against 12, 13 guys on offense because the refs are helping them out, and they're getting a free 15, and those are massive plays. It's like a four. I think the win. There was one the one where they were going to punt, and then they ended up in field goal range and kicked a field goal instead. That 3 points, and that one penalty is like a 4% win percentage bump for the Chiefs.
I know.
And most games, 4% could, like, half the games in the NFL would flop if 4% was different as far as, win percentage in the end, because so many games are one score games in the NFL. So it's not nothing, and the league definitely has to do something about it. And I think enough people are clamoring for it. And look, if you want to be protected, you got to get down, especially when you're a runner. If you don't get down early to where there's no one that could possibly touch you, then you're no longer protected. I think that's the only way to go about this, and even start penalizing guys. Like the flop thing at the end, you got to penalize the quarterback for that. It's just an awful look. It's bad for the league. It's terrible. But I think the Chiefs would have won anyway.
Yep. I agree with 99% of what you said. I just don't blame Mahomes as much as I blame the league. Because I think the competition committee has to get together and be like, this should be a penalty on the quarterback. Kind of like you mentioned, like Lamar does it a lot too. He slows down as he's going out of bounds and he gets 4 more yards. I mean, no one thinks about it, Allen, because he's so massive, but he flops and, does the soccer or NBA flops too. And they just don't have a million rings. So it's not as noticeable, but it's a across the league, great quarterbacks. And I get that makes it hard to root for Mahomes when it's that bad. And my buddies are calling them bad words and stuff, like that. Yeah. And I'm like, he's taking advantage of the system.
It's absolutely taking advantage of the system. And then and that's when you start making rules, and they're going to name it the Mahomes rule, right? And that's how, like, on everyone's mind it is. And then there's like just the natural way of things. You don't want to see, when your team's not the one winning. Chiefs fans love it. But the other 31 fan bases are like, well, we don't want to see the Chiefs win again.
Right. They're going to 7 straight AFC championship games. Right. Like, this is no fun anymore. I want to root against them. Right.
Our quarterback is on all the commercials, and the coach is even in commercials, and the star tight end is, dating a pop star, and they're always showing them on the, so it's like, it's just really easy to root against them at this point, right?
Oh yeah, the Patriots got to that point. They weren't in every commercial all the time, but Deflategate, they're cheating. They're the only ones that ever bend any rule. I mean, that's the only reason they have all those rings, and 7 straight AFC championship games is because the league wants them to. No, they've earned it. You know what I mean? Like
Spygate, right? The Chiefs need a gate, is what we're talking about. They're in gate territory now. Going for a 3-peat. Next, let's talk Washington Commanders superstardom is where the trajectory is for Jayden Daniels as unbelievable rookie quarterback, leads the Commanders past the 1-seed Lions in the NFC to advance to the NFC Championship game, and take a quick peek at these NFC Championship matchups as well. Next. The final segment of today's episode of Peacock Williamson brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. From the first whistle to the final drive, FanDuel makes the NFL playoffs even more exciting because right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300. That's right, $300 now in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's $300 extra dollars to play with on FanDuel to keep the action going. The FanDuel app is easy to navigate, and the variety of bets keeps every game exciting. Tons of props for the big game coming up in a few weeks, and of course for championship weekend as well. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around for your winnings, whether you're betting on your favorite team or just looking to add some extra excitement to the playoffs. FanDuel has you covered. And by the way, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball getting going, and every sport out there, you can find that action on FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $300 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL. Jayden Daniels. I'm going to preview a question that's already in the mailbag for this week, because we were asked a question earlier this season. If, look how good Jayden Daniels is playing. Would you, if you're the Chicago Bears, would you now take Jayden Daniels #1 instead of Caleb Williams? And at the time, we were like, man, a little too early. Mm-hmm. I think that has completely flipped now, right? Yeah, it was like you would not give up the opportunity to get what we've seen from Jayden Daniels here. And the thing that blows me away with what the Commanders did, putting 45 points up, and one of those scores defensively, 45-31 was the final with the Commanders over the 1-seed Detroit Lions. They were 15-2 on the season. A rookie quarterback goes into their house and thumps them like that. Pretty unbelievable. But the path, okay, so going back to the beginning of the show, the whoever has, especially the star quarterback against a non-star quarterback, and I don't say star because you're famous, I say star because you are a difference-making player and you're at that level of player. And that's, I think, what we have to start treating Jayden Daniels as. And Jared Goff is, he's had a really good year. He's been a really good player, but he's still not that. And that's why the Lions moved off of him, and the Rams moved off of him. And he's been even better than the Rams thought, and in the Rams days, and he's improved. He's a really good player, but he's
also a pocket passer,
right? But is the quarterback difference in this game with a rookie Jayden Daniels? Is he so good? Because what we talked about with the Rams and the Eagles, and we talked about how some of these teams are able to run the football and control the line of scrimmage. The Lions had that. Jahmyr Gibbs, 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, wow.
Like 8 yards a carry, right? 14 carries for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns. So they had that advantage on offense, the Lions did, but it didn't matter because they could not stop the Commanders at all. 4 scores in the second quarter, and all of a sudden at halftime, the Lions are like, uh-oh, and they could not flip that at all in the second half either. And the Commanders kept coming, slammed the door when they needed to on offense. And it didn't matter if the Lions could do some things on them, on the Commanders defense, because they put up 45 points in the end. And so that's the difference that a superstar quarterback can make for you. And that's why this weekend I came away thinking, man, these quarterbacks, man, if you got one of those, it makes the margin for error for everybody else so much slimmer, because you can have that advantage on offense if you're the Lions, but guess what? They've got that dude on the other side.
Yep. All that's very true, and he's unbelievably impressive yet again. I'd like to talk about this later in the week, but really the question with me with Daniels, big picture, is of anyone not named Burrow, Lamar, Allen, or Mahomes, is there anyone you'd rather have going forward? Not him versus Caleb Williams. I'm talking about him versus the field, except for those dudes. He might be my next pick.
If we drafted quarterbacks today, and
I think he's the 5th pick in the draft.
He's top 5.
Yep, I think he's number 5. I mean, Herbert, Stroud, I take him. Yeah. So anyway,
maybe
he was awesome
because of how this is exactly how we thought of Stroud last year.
Exactly.
Right?
Which so let's see. I mean, he
could be incoming.
Yeah.
But wow, just what a performance from the Commanders all around as well, and how quickly they've turned around the entire franchise organization, ownership on down, new GM, new coaches on all sides of the ball, like completely
8 new starters on defense. Yeah. So a couple notes, and you touched on a lot of it. He was awesome. Everything Kingsbury touched turned to gold too. I mean, like it was a coaching clinic, which didn't exactly help the assistant coaches, namely the defensive coordinator in Detroit.
Yeah,
that's for sure. But I also wonder, and this is probably being a little too harsh, 2 weeks of interviewing with every team in the league probably didn't do those coordinators a lot of good on game day, to be very honest with you. And maybe that's an excuse. I also think the quarterback thing that you mentioned is very, very true. The discrepancy, the playmaking ability difference between quarterbacks, and numbers don't always mean everything. But the Lions still average 7.7 yards per play, which is a yard more than the Commanders even. I mean, like they're moving the football a ton. And sometimes it just comes back to the old stat. You lost turnover battle 5-0.
And it's funny because some of the games, turnover battle is obviously huge. And then sometimes the turnover battle shifts further because you're trying to make up for the other turnovers. And instead of being like, we're losing the turnover battle 1-0 or 2-0. Well, now it's like, oh shoot, now we're trying to. It's like you go to the casino and you're like, I just lost a big hand. I'm going to double up on the next hand to make up that money back. And then you start turning the ball over even more. And you see, Stafford, Goff, and the pressure's on. And there's a lot of quarterbacks that have that mentality too, and that gambler's mentality, and they kind of get into trouble. And you start to see some of that as well. But mistake-free football on top of everything else for the Commanders on the road. That's what you have to win. And
I think you could argue that the Ravens and Lions lost the game as much as their opponents won it, where the other ones weren't that way,
in a way that the opponent can take advantage of it, unlike maybe some other games during the year.
Yeah, you're not playing the Raiders or the Browns. Right.
One more point on the Bills. It's not like Mark Andrews was running down the field and nobody touched him and he dropped the ball.
Somebody made a play.
Lions were clearly trying to knock the ball out. So you have to, there's guys on the other side too. That ball was punched out. Like a couple plays later, like they're ripping at the ball. They were trying on that last Ravens drive. The Bills were trying to get the ball out. It's their home weather. They know what it's like in weather, in the snow. They were playing the ball control game, and it was the smart game to be playing. So you also have to, even with the turnovers, it's not like, the other team had nothing to do with the turnovers. The turnovers can get forced too. Like you can make a really good play where you pressure the quarterback and force that bad throw. You can make a good play as a DB to pull down the interception. So it's not just one-sided. Both teams have a contribution to those turnovers.
And even dropping the 2-point conversion from Andrews is different than doing it on a September sunny day with, it's 65 degrees out too,
Big man, back hip. It wasn't the easiest catch. It hit his hands. You got to catch the ball clearly, but it's not like it was a walk in the park for him either on that play.
If that would have been on 2nd and 2, the exact same play call in the first quarter, nobody would have brought it up again.
Right.
I mean, like that they happen, but I mean, that's the fine line. I mean, again, these playoff games just show you how hard it is to win playoff games for one thing. Like everyone's always talking about the Lions windows. It's shutting now. I mean, there things like that. And man, and back to your original point, give me the Superman quarterback. When in doubt, that's what this league's all about right now. And it becomes more and more clear this time of year every year.
And if you have that, you can get past some other things unless you're playing another superstar quarterback on the other side.
Right.
And if you are losing that battle and there's a clear tier in your quarterback versus the other team quarterback, you better win in a lot of other ways. And it's the name of the game. It's not groundbreaking, but it just was more magnified to me watching these playoff games, and especially the Saturday games, and a little bit of the Sunday football as well. And
it's not like the Chiefs or Commanders played a 100% clean game either. But they have Mahomes and they have Daniels. They played cleaner games, but
Mahomes has been doing that. don't let him hang around to be within a score.
Ever.
He's going to do some weird, awkward stuff in the fourth quarter and find Kelsey, who can look old for all season long. Doesn't matter. Third down, they're going to convert, and they're going to go down and they're going to score.
And Chris Jones is going to get a sack, and
exactly.
Rinse, repeat. Right. Yeah, right.
Last takeaway from the weekend is that the NFC teams are playing for second place. And whatever,
I think so too.
Whatever team comes out of the AFC, the Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, even Stroud, throw him in there. And we're talking about quarterbacks and these teams and how good they are. And, whoever comes out of that tournament on the AFC side, good luck to the team that comes out on the NFC side. My money's on whoever comes out of that with the AFC.
I thought that was true the second the last game kicked off. I'm like, whoever wins this one or Mahomes is going to win the Super Bowl. And especially because the Lions have been eliminated at that point. I thought maybe the Lions could play a really clean game and outduel Mahomes, Jackson, Allen, but I don't know that the Eagles can, and I definitely don't think the Commanders can in that stage. 2 weeks to prepare.
Come on, all first that ever rookie quarterback winning a Super Bowl?
How about it?
It's going to happen. No, I don't know if it's going to happen. We'll talk more about that. We've got.
But lastly, I just got a text from my Steeler people from the league. The Chiefs-Houston game was the most watched NFL game in NFL history. The most viewed game, breaking records left and right. I know that's not things we always talk about, but I was like, wow.
Wow. That was Saturday. What time was the kickoff on that one?
That was the early one, right? Or no, that was the late one. Yeah, why don't I know that?
No, it was the first game. It was the first game. It was early, but not.
What's going to happen next week?
It was early, but not early, right? Or was it normal?
There was a 4:00 Eastern and an 8:00 Eastern.
Right. So it was like this. It was the late kickoff of a normal Sunday day.
Yeah.
The 1 o'clock Pacific.
It was the first game of the weekend.
But it wasn't like early. It wasn't like a 10 a.m. start for the West Coasters. No.
It was a 4:00 Eastern.
Yeah, on a Saturday. Everyone's watching. Wow. Okay. Even bigger than Super Bowls.
The biggest one that's in history of the NFL. Most watched game.
What? That is insane.
Yeah. I mean, NFL's pretty good business right now. I'm glad we don't cover cricket or lacrosse or right.
That's the other part of the conversation. We talk about guys getting paid too. It's like, how the cap, is it going to start going up so exponentially that it's almost like there's no cap? Like, are we going to start seeing teams not spend to the cap?
And now like Amazon Prime and all these other outlets are involved. I mean, I can't even imagine what they're making in network stuff or the next contract with network stuff.
So many more angles for these championship games. We'll break down everything. Get your questions in as well for this week's Peacock and Williamson mailbag. No doubt some coaching hires are going to start rolling here this week, as well as we approach Championship Sunday, NFL draft conversations, and a whole lot more. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and everywhere you listen to your podcast. Matt and I back tomorrow right here, Peacock and Williamson